So, Christopher Moseley, how do you think is going on this conference on contested languages?
Well, this is the first time I'd heard the phrase contested languages before. Usually I'm used to hearing about endangered languages or minority languages, but it's interesting because this is a unique kind of conference where people get together to discuss languages that are not necessarily in minorities, but they're in clashes or in unequal power relations with each other. And that's a new thing to me. And so I've learned a lot from being here.
Very good. And what about the Atlas? At which stage are we now with the famous Atlas of the World of Endangered Languages?
The UNESCO Atlas of Endangered Languages, or the languages in danger of disappearing, as they call it. Well, it's a work in progress in that I think the next edition will always be better than the last. But it's been available now for 4 years now. So the public has had time to react to it, and I'm very glad that people are still sending feedback, which is my main concern at the moment. Improving on the printed and the online versions of the Atlas through what we learn from feedback from users. There's a lot more information we could include, and a lot of new ways of presenting it. So I don't feel complacent, I don't feel completely satisfied, but I'm also gratified and pleased that people are interested in it all over the world.
So for UNESCO, languages are a cultural heritage which has to be preserved, maintained and valuable.
Yeah, and it all grew out of an appreciation of diversity that came, I think, from the natural sciences first. About 20 years ago there was this international conference in Rio on natural diversity of flora and fauna. And although I've had nothing to do with that and I came on the scene much later, I try and bear in mind all the time that we're talking about keeping cultural diversity alive through the form of language. That's usually the subject I come back to whenever I talk about this atlas, wherever I'm at a conference or a meeting, the question of diversity being preserved. One of our speakers at the conference this morning, when he was asked about the usefulness of keeping a small language alive, said, "I've never seen a panda." Well, I thought that was a pretty good answer, actually. I've never seen a panda. Carlos said that. That sums up a lot, doesn't it, really, saying I've never seen a panda?
Right. So, and what's your personal feeling when you have to put a black label on a language which has disappeared? So, do you think nature is like a biological course? So all languages may one day disappear, or all the languages will be unified, and we will all speak English as we are doing now, for example.
We're speaking English now in a Welsh city. Looking out over a Welsh city. Well, I suppose I feel some sadness if I have to put a black mark against a language, but because it's one less sign of diversity in the world. But I don't feel pessimistic about the world's natural languages, but on the other hand, I try to be realistic. I mean, the survival of the fittest is true in nature, as Darwin said. Why shouldn't it be true in culture as well? But the survival of the fittest is not the same as the hegemony of the majority. And if it is, I'd like to fight against it, if you see what I mean. It's inevitable that languages die. They can't die without... They only die because their speakers wished them to die, or were forced into a position where they no longer cared. I find the more I learn about the world's small languages, there are always people who care about them, and caring about them is the first step to keeping them alive. And at this conference, we've heard a lot about methods methods of education and other official methods of preserving a language. And here in Wales, in my own lifetime, I've seen the Welsh language get stronger and stronger. And that gives me encouragement. Unfortunately, that's the opposite of most of the trends in the world's small languages, but it can happen.